Hello, my name is Danen, Doneske, also known for those who found me in the health, vegan, and raw community as Double D Raw. I would like to thank Father's Heart Transforming Lives Ministries in Uganda for giving me the opportunity to do a testimonial video of my life. I look at my life as I was reflected doing this outline today, and it's truly amazing where God has brought me along the way. God has gifted me a very sharp memory. Maybe not as sharp as it once was, but at times I see the pictures, I see the videos of my life in vivid color, and I can relive them. Mostly the good ones, the good memories is the ones I like to relive, but I'm going to try to do this video in the shortest time possible, but I have a feeling it's going to go quite long. So I'm going to begin. I was born on May 1st, 1985 to Robert William Doneske and Jeannie Doneske, and basically I was a miracle baby because they had 2 miscarriages, and before, my mother did have a previous husband, which I do have a half brother and half sister, but as far as my immediate family, I was the miracle baby. The doctor said that I wasn't going to survive, and God had already told my mother that I would be born, and he gave her my name, Danen, which is a combination between David and Daniel. In some ways I seem to reflect Daniel's path of his life. So I was brought up on health, carrot juice and raw goat's milk for about the first 4 years of my life. It was a true nutritional foundation, which, as you'll find later on, I'm a raw foodist now, and I've returned to the Garden of Eden that I was fed since a child. When I was 3 years old, which I faintly remember, I was at a hotel in Arizona and almost fell in and drowned, but my father saved me, praise God. I was 4 years old, was living in Marshall, Texas with my father, attending the Church in Marshall church at the time, and at one point we were preparing to move, but before that time I had an incident where a go-kart hit me, and I flew into a stone ditch and I went unconscious. I had a concussion, went to the hospital. Woke up fine, a little disturbed being 4 years old and waking up in the hospital in a hospital gown naked. But once again, God protected me. God told us to move back to my grandmother's house in 1989. Basically, my grandfather died shortly after I was born, and she was having a hard time dealing with it, so my father prayed about it, and the angels came to him finally, and he felt it was time to go, so we moved back to California, which I was born in Long Beach, California. So that was my home state, which I'll get into. So I lived with my grandmother. I was introduced to the world of tasty cooked foods, comfort foods. Started playing soccer at about 5 years old. Fast forwarding through parts of my life, which certain things stick out more. When I was about 8 years old, I tripped and I fell, and a steel beam of a trailer went into my head. There was blood going down, and my dad rushed me to the medical hospital, and luckily it wasn't too severe. God protected me, and They wanted to give me stitches, which I refused, and they ended up doing a bandage and it healed up fine. And if you look very closely right in front of me, there's a small indentation. A sign of another miracle, that Satan wanted to take me out, but God kept me going. When I was 9 years old, I got sick for the very first time. After eating the cooked foods, comfort foods, fast foods, animal products, things that I learned to love quickly, I got sick. I got colds, I got flus, I got diarrhea. I didn't like it. It wasn't fun at all. Later, I developed hypoglycemia, a low blood sugar condition, which was terrible and affected me for a majority of my life, affecting me in many ways, how I thought, my mental processes. I was incredibly intelligent. God gifted me that, being my parents were both very healthy, and I was truly a special child, and I had giftedness in schooling and test scores and reading comprehension and memorization, spelling, graphs, maps, science. Those have all been my strong points. And my father basically bought me a 1966 Oldsmobile luxury sedan 98 when I was about 12 years old. It was a tremendous gift. Unfortunately, it needed some work. We were planning on restoring it, but it didn't come to pass. I was about 14 or so. I started seriously bowling. Up until that point, I played soccer for fun. I was a terrible runner, but I was a good defense. But bowling was really what I loved. I got into bowling. I hit it off with the manager of the bowling alley and the bowling instructor, got my own equipment, and went too long, got a good average, went in the league with my dad, adult junior league, and ended up going to the state championship. And the state championship was really difficult, especially since I was dealing with hypoglycemia, which I had to get special permission to eat, because during bowling tournaments, you're not supposed to eat. You're supposed to fast, and unfortunately, I had to eat every 3 hours at least, and I couldn't have sugar. Anything sweet would affect me, and I found out later why, which I'll get into. So, I basically ended up at one point going to high school. I went to a Christian school my whole life. First Baptist Church of Lakewood Elementary School and Valley Christian Middle School and High School. I did quite well even in schooling. I had my blood sugar seemed to affect me more. A lot of dealing with fear, stress, anxiety. Satan really had a control on me, and it was also related to the physical issues with the blood sugar. And the curse that was spoken over me by my father, being a type 1 diabetic for a majority of his life. So my grandmother got sick in high school. She had a mild heart attack, silent strokes, hemorrhaging, ended up being a period of 4 or 5 years. I got a job at the bowling alley. Basically, my father bought me a 1967 Olds 98, which was my high school graduation present, which he bought me, and it was the end of my freshman year, my sophomore year. Yeah, I think it was actually the summer, so technically it was the end of my freshman year. He got that car for me. I still have it to this day, 16 years, and it has 83,000 original miles. Classic then, now it's an antique with 50 years on the when it was made. And it was a challenging time, but I enjoyed working at the bowling alley. I enjoyed my job, doing customer service, being right by my house, getting the discounted bowling, of course, and bowling probably 3 to 4 times a week for 50 cents a game. Ended up becoming a mechanic, in charge on the weekends. I excelled at learning mechanical things, being that my dad and I took apart my 66 holes. My 67 holes didn't need much work. We did do a little work to it, but it was pretty much drivable. So 2005, my father wanted a truck. It was a desire God put on his heart. Ended up, that truck was going to be used for a great purpose. He went to see this show truck, a 2003 Dodge Ram diesel, customized by the owner, which bought it new for $43,000, and then he put $20,000 into it, and then he got sick. He was a computer programmer making big money, and he ended up having to move from the East Coast to the West Coast, living in Hollywood, and then sold it. After my father went to see the truck, and it was too nice, he determined he didn't want it. Well, it ended up that God wanted him to have it because no one wanted to buy the truck after the appointment he had with the owner. Ended up he worked out a deal with the guy and cut down the price, and he got a special loan, and he got that truck discounted for $32,000. The day he got the truck, he got sick, and all the phones went out in the credit union. There seemed to be quite a battle over that truck, but we got it. My grandmother's health deteriorated. It passed into a terrible situation where she ended up in the hospital and she didn't leave. She had multiple problems, health conditions. The 12+ medication she was taking a day were destroying her, making her toxic. We tried to help her with natural foods, but she was accustomed to eating her cheeseburgers, fast food, meat, potatoes, and ice cream. And in the end, it killed her. Being that she wanted nothing to do with God, there was demonic things going on there, a Jezebel spirit. Eventually, her body gave up. She did not give up. The demons did not give up, but the body gave up. And she passed away. They ended up putting her on morphine. She died in 2006, January 10th, I believe. It was a devastating time. Shortly after I dropped out of college, I was attending the California State University, Long Beach, going to be a computer engineer, getting grant money, having everything paid for, and then building my own computer, which I built several. And things got really bad. Things that I mentioned to Brother Enos via text, who wanted me to do this video. The sad thing is when people pass away, Satan will try and dominate the family members, and that's what happened. It was very bad. Family members turned on each other. My father being the only true child with 2 adopted sisters, both which we loved, my aunts, and the war on the house that we were living. It ended up to getting legal, and it got very ugly, and a lot of stress, a lot of pain, and there's a lot of hurt between us all. And we ended up, God disconnected me from California when I had the option to stay there, to live with people, to go finish my schooling. God told me to leave with my father, and we did. He opened up the door. We wanted to move back to Texas. They wanted to move us out immediately, but my father refused and wanted a trailer to move his machinery, being a woodworker. As Jesus was a woodworker, and Joseph, his father, my father, was a woodworker, a pattern maker, and I got into woodworking too in high school. I still have my chairs I built back in freshman and sophomore year. They're sitting out on my porch. So we ended up moving. We went back to Texas. God opened the door. He gave my dad a job. pattern making job. It didn't pay a whole lot, but out in the South, it's much easier to survive than out in California. So we moved in at peace, or so we thought for a little bit, as the war on the house went through. Back in California, it finally got sold. Dad got his inheritance. I started a business, Fresh Air and Water Solutions, first ever. Got to connect to my family more permanently on my mother's side, seeing them at Thanksgiving. Going back in 4th grade, we traveled to the church conference when I was about 10 years old, and I saw my mother for the first time that I could remember, along with my half-brother, half-sister, and all their children, which now I'm here with them in a very short distance. So basically, my business, I attempted it, and I did not have a lot of wisdom about it. But it was a good try, but after about a year's time, things were failing, and my dad said that, I had to start helping with the bills and everything, and I need to get a job. So I was down to about $300, and I watched Wisdom Ministries, which I became a partner, Dr. Nasser Siddiqui, and I ended up selling a $50 seed, a sacrificial seed, into the ministry, and filled out applications. The first one got rejected. It was a $9 an hour job working for a call center 30 miles away, 25 miles away, something like that.